providing funding for transportation. I know it was difficult, and we sincerely appreciate that. We oppose repealing the initiative to repeal the gas tax indexing. One of the reasons, major reason why, is over the past several years, MMA and local leaders across the state worked hard to educate the public and make them aware of the transportation crisis. We worked on forums, we wrote opinion pieces, we met with editorial boards, we had a legislative breakfast. And our goal was to educate the public, and along with Mass Highway Association, and let them know how important transportation funding was for their local roads. One of the things we highlighted is that studies have shown maintaining our infrastructure in good condition is up to 10 times less expensive than paying for major repairs and reconstruction forced by neglect and poor upkeep. Modern and well-maintained roads are essential to attract families and keep families and businesses and foster economic development and investment in our communities by creating jobs and ensuring public safety and actually building higher quality of life in our communities. This was critically important, and the public gets it, and they got it. Through surveys, public opinion polling data, public agrees. Mass DOT conducted a survey and over 100 interviews with stakeholders. And the survey found, and this is critical, when asked to rate the importance of spending money on various priorities, it's pretty kind of common sense, but maintaining existing roads, highways, and bridges was up on the highest priorities. So, and when you drill down a little bit further with regard to roadway improvements, there was a strong desire to see increased maintenance of existing infrastructure. Respondents pointed to poor road quality, and my favorite is potholes. So if we think of this just as potholes, that's what the public sees. It's almost like snow plowing and trash. They get it. They want those potholes fixed and repairs. 60%, as was said in the past, voters support the gas tax that was passed, as long as the money is used for road and bridges. And this is guaranteed for that. So if history is any indication, without the gas tax indexing, the funding stream is not sustainable. It took 22 years just to raise this gas tax 3 cents, and a lot of courage from folks here on the road to do that. In that time, inflation has eroded the value of that from 21 cents down to 12 cents. And as John Corbett said earlier, we have cars now that are getting 50 miles a gallon, and trucks with EcoBoost are getting close to that. So as not only is inflation taking that money away, but fuel economy is taking that away. So we've had deficit spending, and last year you guys fixed that. But we've also had deficit spending at the local level, and had to go into cities and towns' bonding capacity, use CDBG funds. In fact, we released a report last year that showed that there's a shortfall of approximately $362 million and the need to spend $562 million every year just to maintain our municipal roadways in a state of good repair. That's the standard for well-maintained roads in good conditions. And remember, maintaining our infrastructure in good condition by repairing potholes, using coat seals, simple repaving is up to 10 times less than trying to rebuild those roads. I have that study for you too. So Chapter 90 for many communities is the only source of money for funds in those smaller communities. And like I said, cities and towns augment it with bonding capacity and CDBG funds. But under Proposition 2.5, cities and towns have been unable to increase the amounts of local funds to supplement Chapter 90 unless they've got other important services such as public education, safety, or pass a tax override increasing their reliance on already overburdened property taxes. As a result, we've seen crumbling roads and local roads. So we've asked the legislature, and we'll be going before DOT in a capital plan, on a $3 $300 million a year indexed to inflation for 5 years. So communities can plan their pavement management programs on a consistent and adequate amount of sustainable funding. But we cannot do this without a funding source that is predictable, consistent, reliable. That source happens to be the gas tax, and it must be indexed to inflation. And I think waiting 22 years for another gas increase will not work, and our roads will be falling apart and our infrastructure will come down. So I want to thank you very much. I thank the speaker for attending this weekend at our meeting and pledging $300 million this year in Chapter 90 and getting it out by April 1st. I just got to put that plug in there. And one final thing, Mike Whitmere from Mass Taxpayers Foundation spoke at our selectmen's meeting this weekend. And he said the most critical part of that transportation finance legislation was the index. So we have a lot of respect for Mike, and when he's usually on target. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Let me just say, Raphael, I don't know if you organized these panels, but it was pretty diverse. We don't often see the employer community, the chamber community, the business community, local municipalities, environmental organizations all together.
All credit goes to Lizzie Wine.
Okay, really well.
And just
quite a diverse group that don't always are always on the same page of various issues up here before the legislature. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Representative Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask Ms. Weiner, by what group is it that ranked us so low, 45th in transportation, and what standards did they use in their ranking?
It's a business journal, and I'm happy to get you the actual citation and information. It was I want to say it was last year, so it was 2000, the start of 2015, so looking a little further back. We were ranked 45th out of 50 states for infrastructure investments, and it does all of the information in the article includes what standards they use to actually do the rankings, if it was roads and bridges, and the whole bit. I will absolutely send it to your office.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions, members of the committee? Seeing none, we thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you. Now we're going to be joined by Senator Bruce Cobb, Mr. Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see you. And today, I suppose it's just nice to be in a warm place. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here with all of you. Always happy to be before the committee. I appreciate being taken out of turn, and I will reciprocate by being as brief as I can. Mr. Chairman, I am here first on behalf of Senate 1910, which is a home rule petition emanating from the town of Ipswich that seeks to right an injustice that has occurred with regard to a particular veteran named George Foster, who was a World War II veteran at the Battle of the Bulge. Mr. Foster was entitled to a tax exemption that became available. Unfortunately, he had passed away. His widow was not aware of that tax exemption and mistakenly paid some $15,000 of property taxes to the town of Ipswich. The town is now before us by virtue of a home rule petition seeking to right that injustice and have the authority to repay those funds. And so Senate 1910 is the vehicle by which that could be accomplished. So I'm here to seek your expeditious approval of that measure. And Mr. Chairman, while I'm here, I'd also voice my support for the initiative petition relative to divorcing the gas tax from an index to inflation. Mr. Chairman, at the very least, I think the public deserves the right to be able to vote on this matter. There have been comments made at the microphone relative to public sentiment, and there's only one way to verify the accuracy of the belief that we have relative to that, and that is to allow folks to vote. But I would also suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, that we would be mistaken if we believe that by indexing the gas tax to inflation, we are going to be able to adequately address all of the transportation needs that our Commonwealth has. And in fact, I think it would be a mistake to believe that relying on that measure will close the shortfalls that we have. The reality, Mr. Chairman, is that we have very serious decisions to make about transportation in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we have to decide the right way to pay for them. And by putting transportation financing in large part on the back of a formula that is not accountable to the public in the way that we as legislators are for our decisions, I think we'd be doing that whole situation a disservice. And I would point out, Mr. Chairman, that with regard to Chapter 90 funding, those of us that are in this room that were responsible for those decisions over the past couple of years have in fact been putting sufficient revenue on the table and sufficient appropriations on the table to provide those $300 million. And notwithstanding that fact, the cities and towns haven't seen it. And so I would point out that we are accountable, we have decisions to make. I think we need to decide what our priorities are and begin to address them as we have tried to do, particularly over the last several years. And so I would hope that we would at least allow some decisions to be made and allow us to think not in terms of simple indexing to inflation, but how we're going to tackle this problem in the way that we've been seeking to do so in the last several years. So I appreciate the opportunity to be heard on that matter as well, Mr. Chairman, and as always, it's a pleasure to be before you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Leader. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Next to testify in House 3847, my apologies, Bill Vernon. So Bill here earlier. Bill stepped out. Okay. Bill is not here. If he returns before the close of the hearing, we'll allow him certainly to testify. We have Janet Aldred. Am I correct? Yes? Please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I guess I'm doing a selfie.
Oh,
I'm here, I'm Janet Aldridge Hamilton, and I'm also Catch of the Day Video News freelance reporting. And I have a registry for reporters in Massachusetts that I'm developing. So my whole purpose of coming up to the State House in the beginning, or coming up to the State House, was to really do a study on the public record open meeting law and public access and how the process works with technology, the age of technology. So what I want to my comment right now is I wrote that I was in opposition to the initiative petition, Bill 3847, but actually I support that initiative petition. I don't understand sometimes when things are written down here, they actually the opposite, and when I try to read it, I have to ask a gazillion questions, so I didn't see the whole bill. I just saw this, and I came in actually to cover people because I saw the buzz on the internet that there was a lot of public, were being alerted that this bill was being presented today. So I also need to make a comment that I took it upon myself to do some of the initiative petitions myself up in the West Shore, I want to tell you, I only did it for like a day because I froze to death, and I don't have the stamina anymore to do this. But I want to tell you, people were going home and they were getting their neighbors and their relatives to come down, and they would come down and say, we heard you were down here, and I thought they were going to be over there, and I never, so I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of public sentiment on this bill, and I'm surprised that not very many people are here, and hopefully they're working. But that's my comment right now, is that my plumb line for anything that I do is constitutional. How does this fall on the constitutional plumb line? I think that we have fallen away from the constitutional plumb line over and over, and if you address any bill that comes forward here, where does the plumb line for constitutional process fall in place? So I'm very fearful. I think the public sentiment is really at a breaking point. I don't think they can take much more of this, and that this particular thing, which hits them every single day at the gas pump, is going to infuriate them. So I think we need to take stock of really, when the public steps up like this and tries to put a petition forward, they need to respect it and let them vote. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I thank you very much. Thank you. That concludes all of the individuals who have signed up to testify on House 3847. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to testify on that or any other measure before us? Seeing none, I will call this hearing closed.